All right, it's Monday. There's 14 days left, including today. You all have your Monday faces on. I had a feeling that very few people, maybe you weren't listening there, but you all have the same face on. So I'm going to try something different. All right, you don't have to turn this in, but you actually will probably like this. So I'd suggest you follow my lead here. All right, go to your desktop. Make a new folder. Call that new folder, one word, tic-tac-toe. All right? So I made a new folder and I called it, tic-tac-toe. Open the folder. Inside of the folder, we're going to do a lot of what we have been doing. In that, first come in, create a JS folder, then create a CSS folder, all right, and then come in and right underneath your tic-tac-toe, right mouse click, choose new, go down to text document, change the name from new text document .text to index.html, hit enter. When it beeps at you, are you sure you want to change it? Yes. All right. So literally that's what your screen should look like right now. Questions? No? Good. Open up your index.html file. We're just going to build this incrementally, one step at a time. And after we get done building it, it's going to look ugly. So we will use some CSS on it and pretty it up. Then it'll look pretty, but it won't be at all functional. Then we'll make it functional. And we will use jQuery in order to do it. All right? So give you a second to put all that in. It's really not very much HTML. After this, we're not going to type in much at all. So. Feel free to save that if you want to. I'm going to go out then and on the internet, I'm going to go out and I'm going to type in jQuery CDN. And I'm going to pick the one from jQuery itself. All right, and that's https://code.jquery.com. All right. Now I could go and copy it in. I'm just going to go down here and look for CDN. Thought there was a CDN down here someplace. Core versions, press, boom, boom. I'm making this too hard. if instead, you don't have to do this, but if instead you go out to this URL, kind of a neat URL because they've got a lot of stuff listed there that you may eventually be interested in using. That is right there. cdnjs.com/libraries.jquery. You can download just about anything from there. So I'm going to go there, and I'm going to grab from Cloudflare, I'm going to grab the jQuery, the one that's highlighted in gray, the minified version of 3.3.1. All right. So I'm going to put that down near the bottom. All right. And you know as well as I do, I need that in the script tags. That doesn't give you all that other stuff that we had talked about, that being the origin and the cross, whatever it is, stuff. Okay, but this will work just fine. I mean, we're making a piddly little game here. Underneath that, will be our JavaScript file. All right. This won't be beautiful, it won't be ugly, but it'll be functional. All right. So then upwards in the body, I'm going to put a div in there, and then I'm going to have it hold some statistics. So I'm going to say ID equals stats. Right now that'll just appear as being empty. Okay. Then we're going to make another div, and its ID is going to be equal to container. All right, in there, we're going to put in a header. And that header will have an H1 in it that'll say tic-tac-toe. All right. And then outside of that header, outside of the header, but still in our container, we're going to make an unordered list. You know as well as I do that an unordered list is made up of list items. And unless you really like to type, I'd recommend that you grab this one and put it in there 9 times. And then change the name each time. So we've got our typical stuff that you'd see up here. All right. The doc type statement, your beginning HTML tag, beginning head tag, beginning and ending title tags with the title between it, the link for our style sheet, the end of our head, and the beginning of our body. All right. Then in our body, we've got an ID called stats. That's just empty right now, but it's going to hold some statistics as we end up playing the game. And then we've got an ID called container that's right here. That ID is going to have our header, which is going to have an H1, with tic-tac-toe in it. And it's going to have an unordered list. These are going to be, if you haven't already figured it out, these will be the 9 spots on the tic-tac-toe board. So eventually, we'll want it to look like this. Does that make sense? Right now, it's going to look like this, which isn't what we want, but we haven't done any styling yet. So don't worry that it looks nothing like a game, because as of right now, it will not. All right, about 3 or 4 more lines and we're done with the HTML. Come down to the bottom of your div. Okay, oops, hold on. So come down to the bottom of your div, and we're going to put in, another div. And it's just going to say div class equal clearfix. So if we're going to do any work, if we decide to do any work with floating left or right, this will unfloat it. All right. Finally, we're going to put a footer on the bottom. It's going to be a total of 3 lines. Oops. There's 1 of the lines. There's 2 of the lines. And here's the 3rd one. All right, let me just run it, look at it. So you can see right now it doesn't look like very much. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. And it's not functional. We can click on it all we want and nothing's going to happen. All right. I know some of you type faster than others. Does everybody have that? All right. So the next thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to come in and I'm going to open up my CSS file. All right. And maybe I didn't make one. I don't know. But I'll make one now then. That's fine. So new text document again. And this one will be style.css. I thought I made that before, but maybe I didn't. I don't know. All right. And I'm going to open that. And right now it's empty. So what we'll do is we'll style it, and after everything we do, we'll go back and take a look at it. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So we're just going to do a little bit, and then we're going to run it again. And we're going to do a little bit more, and we're going to run it again. All right. So ideally, by the time we get done with this, it'll look decent. And I'm not going to lie to you. I take a lot of classes online. I based this off of a class I took online. I used most of his HTML and CSS. I totally rewrote the JavaScript. Basically, it's got none of his JavaScript in there. All right, so start out with my body. Oh, I can't make it any bigger. Give it a background color. Give it a text color. And give it a font family. All right. That's all I've done so far. You just saw what this looked like. Okay. That's what happens when I refresh. Now don't worry, I know it's hard to see. It'll all work out in the end, all right? All right, so there's our body. Next, we want to take our H1 tag. and we're going to make sure it's centered. And we're going to give it a color. What color is this? What color is this?
White.
Right, it's white. And since it is a repeating, you could either put pound FF, 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 or you could put in pound FFF, or we could have used the word white. All right, I just left it the way it was. So what has that done? Well, okay, it's centered our heading, and it's white, so it's easier to read now. All right. Everybody has this, correct? All right. I'm going to hit enter a few times just to move this up a bit. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up that clear fix, which we're probably not even going to use. And all that says is clear both. I'm not going to run it again because it's not going to look any different. All right. We could put that in, but I'm not. I mean, we could run it. I don't really see the reason to run it. All right. All right. Now I want to work on the container. I'm not worrying about pixels versus M's. I'm not worrying about responsiveness because the idea is to get this sucker built and then talk about some jQuery. All right? Now I've got here margin 40 pix auto. What should that do? Yeah, this is all review. What should that do? Somebody has to know this. Yes, it'll set the top and bottom margin to 40 pixels. It'll set the left and the right margins to auto, which means it should center on the page. All right? If you look up on the screen here, I'll go right back to it. All right. Looking a little bit better. And again, don't worry, we haven't done anything with the code that goes in here yet. That's why it's not showing. All right, we'll fix that in just a minute. Right now, it looks like this. But I want an area up here where I can write statistics. In other words, I can write how many games X won, how many games Y won, and how many tie games there were. Does that make sense? Now I could put it at the bottom, I could put it on the left, I could put it on the right or the top. I just arbitrarily chose the top. All right? And that's that stats area. Now, I can save this, I can run it again, but it's not going to look any different except I should have a little bit more area up here. And you notice I do. But the stats aren't going to show until I've played at least one game. Since I haven't played any games yet, there's nothing to show there. This thing right here, this is the board. Okay, that's the board. That's where we're going to play tic-tac-toe in just a minute. So the next thing to do is to style the board. And that board, if you remember, is made up of list items. So that's what we're going to style first. Notice here's our floating. Do you all understand, if you'd stop for a second and look on the screen, all right? By making the height and the width 70 and 70, I'm making squares. Does that make sense? Those are going to be the 9 squares that are going to take up the screen. Right. All right, let me just check and make sure I didn't screw anything up. And I probably did, because I think I should have something showing there. But let me double check my code here. Left, margin 10, 70, 70. Size 55. Text align center, board radius 5.
Did we ever leave board?
I thought we did up here. Maybe I didn't have you put it in here. So. Nope. Okay, go back to your HTML. Thank you. And put an ID on the unordered list of board. Make sure it's B-O-A-R-D, not B-O-R-E-D. So go back to your HTML, please, and on the unordered list there, yours just says UL, make it ID equal board. All right, let's see what that does. Yeah, that looks a little nicer. Thank you. All right. So there's the associated CSS. Now, we don't have to do what we're about to do, but what I'd like to do is, if I take my mouse and I put it over any one of these, see what color it is right now? It's almost black, but it's not black. See those plus signs? What I'd like is if I put my mouse over one of these squares, I want it to turn black. I'm asking you this question. Look on the screen, please. If I put my mouse over here and I want it to change color, what is that? What am I doing right here when I put my mouse over something? Thank you. All right. So I've got my board LI, but now I want my board LI hover. Not only that, we're going to style our button in a minute, and I want that button to do the same thing. That button was called reset. And I want to do two things. That's it. I want to set my cursor to a pointer. You'll see what that is in a minute. And I want to set my background color to black. Did that work? Let's see. Now notice if I put my mouse over this. Doesn't look good right now. That looks better. Don't put a space between the reset and the hover. You see now when I put my mouse over it, what's happening? This does too, so that we got to fix. We're going to fix that button in just a second. All right. But now you can tell which square or whatever you want to call it, which one is active. All right. Don't have much more to go on here. A dozen more lines or so. So we did the reset hover, but we didn't do the button itself. I'm going to do that now. Let's see if that fixed the button accordingly. All right, well, that's bigger than I wanted it to be. Not sure what I screwed up there, but we'll see if we can fix it. Okay. It's not supposed to look like that. Zero, 4, 70%. That's not as hard, but we'll fix it. I'm not going to worry about it.
Is it the width?
No, the width should be 70%. But for some reason, oh, I think I know what it is. We'll fix it in a minute. I know what it is. And we'll still fix it in a minute. All right. Now, I've got a question for you. We're going to make a class. We're going to assume that if you're playing tic-tac-toe, it's X's versus O's. Does that make sense? I know you can get tic-tac-toe for like Star Trek and stuff like that and play Spock, and we're not doing that. All right? So we're just going to keep it simple, and we're going to have a class for X and a class for O. All right? So dot O, that'll be our O class, not oblique. And can somebody tell me what this means? And I'm just going to copy that. In fact, I'll just put the rest of the code in here. There's only like 3 more lines. Okay. Can somebody tell me what either one of these lines mean? What is that important tag saying? Yes. If there is something else that would happen to set that color, we're saying we want it to be overridden. And anything with a class of O should be green. Anything with a class of X should be red. So in other words, hopefully in about a half an hour or so, when we actually have the game up and running, all right, your X's will be one color, your O's will be one color, all right? All right. The reason that right now, the reason that this looks funky, and it shouldn't, but the reason it does look funky, we have to go back and just move a line in our HTML. That's all. So bring back up your HTML, please. Bring back up your index.html file. This ending div that's right here for the container, put it at the very bottom. All right. Right underneath your footer. So I want to move these over one. if I said that too fast or you didn't get it, this div where the ID equal container, I had it ending right here. I shouldn't have. I should have had it ending right at the bottom. All right? So notice that now, once we do that, watch how our button changes. See that? That's what we wanted to have happen. All right, still got the blackness in here, etc. So we now basically have our game board written. If I did that too fast, you want anything repeated, just ask. What's that?
Can you go back to the HTML?
Yes. Make sure you save, go ahead and run it, and make sure after you run it, it should look like this. All right? Anybody need anything else repeated, shown? I can go up higher on here, whatever you need. All right? I'll go till about 10 o'clock, then we can take another break. If you look up on the screen, please, imagine this is my tic-tac-toe board, because we're about to write the JavaScript for it. And I know I'm not an artist, but you get the idea. Start to think about all the ways you can win in tic-tac-toe. All right, I think there's 8. I could be wrong, but I think there's 8. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. That's 4, that's 5, that's 6, that's 7, and that's 8. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. Now, after doing this, this is how your really cool instructor spends his Saturday nights, because that's what I did Saturday night, because I couldn't get my wife to go out with me. All right. So I thought about it later, and I probably should have done this using an array. It would have made more sense, but I didn't. So if you want to go and change it to make it use an array, cool. All right. Does everybody have both these files working? Does your game board look the way it should look? You don't have to turn this in. All right. But what I want to show you once we start going through it, I literally, you're going to look at it and you're going to go, man, you put a hell of a lot of comments in. Yeah, because this is the first time we're writing a JavaScript program that is using jQuery. That's why. All right. My hope is tomorrow you all get a good night's sleep, because tomorrow I want to finish going over the test with you. All right. And then if there's any time, I want to start going over the homeworks for chapters, whatever it was, 8 and 9, I guess. All right? Yes.
I was going to scroll to the bottom of the HTML.
So again, once we get into where we are writing the JavaScript, and remember, jQuery is just JavaScript. You're not turning this in, so whether you write comments like I am or you don't write them, I don't care. But if I ask you to do something later that's sort of based off of this, and you go, I don't remember how to do that, and you didn't put in comments, it ain't my problem. All right? Okay. So, let's go on then. So right now, we have in our CSS, we've got our style. We've got our HTML file. Both of them are a K, so they're not very big. And in Java, in our JS folder, there's nothing. So we're going to put something there. Again, I open up the JS folder. I'm again going to right mouse click, choose new, go to text document, and just change the name of it to script.js. Yes, I want to change the extension there. All right. This whole program consists of three different files. We've already got 2 created. So I'm going to open up the script.js file, which right now, as you can see, is empty. All right. Everything that we do in this program, and there's a bit of typing here. We won't get it all done before the break. But everything that we do in this program here, we're putting inside of the document.ready function. Document.ready, that function runs as soon as the DOM has been built. So in other words, as soon as the document object model is available, that means that everything that we put in this code will be available. The reason that that's important is it basically means you run the program and instantaneously you'll be able to start to play. Does that make sense? All right. Now, and again, I want you to understand a couple things about this. I know you all want to type. Please don't type. Just watch for about a minute. All right? Because I'm just going to put in 2 lines, and I'll give you time to put them in there. Now, this is the first 2 lines of the program, but before you type them in, this says, again, the document object model has loaded, and that should be ready, not red. All right. But a couple things about this. This whole thing that's right here, everything that you see in gray can be replaced with just $function paren. For whatever reason, nobody ever does that. Even though it's a little more typing, people type it in like this. Mainly, I think it's mainly because if you don't have that in there, people might not know exactly where that is. But there's only should be one document.ready. But if you leave it, if you just put it in like this, then it's just an anonymous looking function. It can be confusing. But the key thing, please look up on the screen here. You see how that parenthesis right there, see where it ends? The parenthesis begins here and it ends here. Most of the time when you put in jQuery routines, they will have function, something, paren, function, and there may or may not be something in here, curly brace, and then it'll end. In fact, that curly brace that you see on line 1, it ends on line 3. All right? And it just means that we want to run everything that's in between there. That's all. All right, so if you want to type that in, fine, type that in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare and initialize my variables. And I have 7 of them. There's a lot of things that you could do with this that I'm not doing, such as, all right, we could come in and we could put in a drop-down list, or even better, a radio button. that said, who do you want to be? X's or O's. Couldn't we do that? I'm just assuming whoever goes first is going to be, I think it's O. I don't even remember. Yeah, it's O. All right. But we don't have to do that. Okay. We could change the colors. We could do all sorts of stuff. That's not the goal behind this. Now, looking at what we had before, should have left that up there. But looking at this, does it make sense to everyone that the maximum number of turns you can take is 9? Does that make sense? That would mean every square that's in here is filled. But I need something so that it can tell me what my number of turns are. Does that make sense? So I created a variable called turns. All right. Again, I've got a variable called var x or o. Anybody want to take a wild guess as to what that variable is going to be used for? X or O? Yeah. Whose turn is it? It's actually what I put down for the comment. Whose turn is it? All right. Then I wanted to keep track of O wins and X wins. It doesn't matter which one of these we put first. Oops. Sorry. We'll call it tie games. All right. Okay, so those are our variables. X, O, and a bunch of integer variables. Turns for whose turn is, turns for the turn number, X or O, for whose turn it is, and number of X wins, the number of Y wins, and the number of tie games. Now, I didn't do this, but it would have also been possible for X or O. That almost sounds like it should be a Boolean, doesn't it? X or O. All right, we could have made that a Boolean if we wanted to do it that way too. To me, that true false for X or Y didn't make a lot of sense, so I just made them numbers. All right. Now next, I'm going to put the pieces on the game board. Now, look on the screen if you would, please. That is this. Does that make sense? I don't know any easier way to show it to you, but that's what it is. So in other words, I'm going to have something that's going to represent an ID of spot 1, an ID of spot 2, an ID of spot 3, all the way through an ID of spot 9. And I did purposely give each one of them their own ID because they each represent one of the 9 possible squares where you can move. We're not talking about any logic or anything yet. All right? So we'll put these in and then we'll take another break. And I just put a comment here. I said row 1, column 1. And unless you really have a desire to do a lot of typing, I would just put it in there 9 times. Notice I also changed the comments. Again, had this been an array, as opposed to just being 9 individual variables, they would have been probably spot 0 through spot 8, as opposed to spot 1 through spot 9. I mean, it works fine this way. We could change it. All right, I'm going to save, and I'm going to go back there. It doesn't work yet, but I just wanted to show you something. First of all, let's pretend for a second that I clicked all the ones in the first row. Everybody here? I got an O here, an X here, and an O here. Does that make sense? Now I come back here and I click where I've already got something. I shouldn't allow that. Wouldn't you agree? All right. You're going to have a cat's game every time because people are going to be able to overwrite what's there. You know, so that would be silly. Okay? So that's the first thing. I don't want to allow that to happen. Second, let's suppose that I've won 4 times, 5 times, whatever. But now I've got 3 X's here. The game should be over. So I'm going to have to check after every move to see whether or not the game is over. All right? Next, there's only one way that this can be a tie. And that's if all 9 turns have been taken and X hasn't won and and O hasn't won. Would you agree with all those? Kind of the way we do it. But again, remember, we're programming something. You know, if you sat there and grabbed a piece of paper and did your X's and O's and stuff, you know all those rules already. All right? But we're programming them into the game here. So let's take another break. It's 10:05. Let's come back at 10:20 and we'll finish this up.